Yeah, so if you start streaming. Call to order. So everybody who's coming, I think, is coming. Mr. Harris, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Ms. Bird.
Here.
Ms. Cook. Mr. Castro.
Here.
Ms. Lyons.
Here.
Mr. Feldman.
Here.
Mr. McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Ruffo.
Here.
And Chairman Adams.
Here. Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Okay. I actually missed it. Is Commissioner McGran officially here or just listening in? Okay. So we have 8 of 9. Commissioner Cook did say she wasn't going to be able to make it. If she was possible, she would be listening in on the live stream. So while she won't be participating, she will be hopefully receiving everything. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Working as fast as we have, we do not have the minutes. Okay, just double checking. That there wasn't an email a week ago that I didn't see and that I've completely forgotten about. So we will step over that and move on and have the minutes for the February 15th meeting at the next meeting in 2 weeks. Next item, report from the chair. My first is welcome to everybody who is here. Thank you. Appreciate any attendance by the public. Glad to see people here and anybody. So there's actually a good crowd. Thank you very much. We'll just want to point out on the agenda, we have 2 spots for public comments. So if you have anything you would like to say to the commission after my comments is the first public comment. You're welcome to get up. Please come to the lectern, give your name and the street in which you live, and provide any comments you want. There will be another section at the end of the meeting, so if there's something that happens, this is effectively a work session. So I do ask that while we want to hear from the public, you hold all your comments till at the very beginning or wait till the very end, instead of trying to work in. I will, nothing personal, but I will do my best to ignore you, is what will happen. In between there, so we can get through the rest. Our next item is we have a bit of a change now, although she was here the last meeting.
December.
In December, you weren't here in the February. Mm-hmm. Okay. Lynn, if you want to introduce yourself from PEL and just give us the minute background and what's going to be happening.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Lynn Shedlock. I wear several hats at the Pennsylvania Economy League, including project manager, researcher, and communications director. I am going to be jumping into the second half of the process to assist with Jerry and Fred, and Patty will be in and out sometimes as well. And so just, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the It's Not 1965 Anymore report. So I was the main author. I was the author. Patty did a lot of the research and stuff, but I wrote all the words. And I have been with PEL for roughly 10 years, and I have had some involvement in home rule in the past. So thank you very much for having me.
And thank you. So I'm assuming you are planning on being here through the rest of the process.
I will be coming to all of the meetings going forward, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And as you probably noticed, Mr. Rettig is still not here. I think he is here on Teams. So hopefully feeling better and glad to see you again. Hopefully we'll be back in person quickly. Thank you. The next thought, what I want to report is Commissioner Ruffo and I were contacted by the head of the Hourglass Foundation. I only got back to her this morning, so asking us, you may want to say a little more. I think you've had a little more contact with her and a more long-term contact with her than I have.
So they have First Friday forums every month, once a month, for it's a membership organization. So members are invited to the First Friday forum, and they ask folks in the county to give different presentations about what's going on that's relevant to the community. They record the sessions, and then they make those sessions available to the public at large. So they've invited us, she specifically invited Brian and I for the April forum. And so we are coming to all of you to get agreement that we should participate in that. I don't know if Brian and I have to be the ones that are there, but we would have to develop a presentation and then present it and be available for comments. I think it aligns with perhaps what we want to do with public engagement, like one little sliver. So it's their most, I don't know about who specifically their members are, but it's more, from my understanding, more of a business audience. And so that's one audience we need to talk to.
As well as, my understanding is three members of the commission. Or,
I'm a member.
I know Mr. Dastro, I think McGran, and Mr. Barber. So they're also already members of the commission, are part of the Hourglass Foundation. I don't think this requires any sort of vote. I think this is just more of an affirmation. If there's any objection to us doing this, let us know. Or if somebody else would like to be there, please let one of us know. I think it's a great idea, and I'm kind of looking forward to presenting what we do. I'm proud of what we've done so far, and want to hopefully push the process forward. So if there's no problem with that.
Just a note of caution. You will have, by my count, 3 to 5 members of the commission there. There's 2 notes I would make. Is one, again, speak towards process. I don't think any of you individually are authorized to speak on behalf of the commission. That's an obvious one. And the second part is you don't want to get into any debate or discussion amongst yourselves regarding the topics that we're actually discussing here, because then we could have potentially a Sunshine Act issue. So again, you can report out to them on process, what's upcoming, maybe what the commission as an entity has done, but I would caution against anything that starts to even venture into content.
Okay, well, good point. Thank you. Well taken. Okay.
Can I just interject on something related to that, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I attended this, and it's, I would say, yeah, it's a good cross-section of people. And, to your comment, Barry, the one thing that they do every year in December is a meeting with the 3 county commissioners who all attend. They all have an opportunity to make remarks, and then there's a question and answer forum. So that's similar to your concern, but I think it's manageable.
Okay. So, all right, Mr. McGran, thank you. Any other comments about it? Okay.
I just think having a pre-made presentation would be a good thing to help us. Oh, yeah. Well, I figured that was. I just think having a pre-made presentation would be a good thing to keep us in line with what Barry's suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it probably is something we're going to discuss in the first public education engagement meeting.
Okay.
Again, I'm only commenting out of caution to protect
Yeah,
you,
no,
not trying to be a veto
or you
vote.
3
It's
could
really
just not
meant to
come.
protect you both.
Stay away.
Okay.
Stay away.
Like I said.
I have a question about that. So do we have to put that in the public, like how we notify the public, advertise the way we advertise for? No, okay.
I see it as a public education
Right.
outreach offering.
So the point I'm making is by taking the cautions that I mentioned, you keep it from being deemed what's called a meeting under the sunshine. everything is about just making sure if you follow those guidelines, then it's not a meeting that has to be publicly advertised and requires a public engagement, public comment portion that are enshrined in that act.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about it? All right, great. Moving on, public comments. I'll remind everybody here that the meeting is live streamed and recorded, so that if you choose to speak, it is recorded. You're accepting that. You're agreeing to that. Anybody would like, please come up to the lectern.
John, you may, John, if you make sure that it's a green light on.
Having John Gavea, 100 block of East Orange Street. Just a simple request. Make sure that when you're speaking that microphones are close enough, because some of you are speaking with your backs to us, and we really can't hear clearly what's being said. That's the whole point of us being here, is to hear what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to make any comments to start? All right. So as I mentioned before, hopefully we'll keep public comments now to the end of the meeting. So if you do have additional or comments you want to make, please, if you would, please wait till the end. I appreciate that. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we formed 4 subcommittees at the last meeting. I know at least one has met and had dinner, but hopefully it was good. If we can just go through the 4 committees, give a short report on what you've planned, what the plans going forward are. And the order is there. It doesn't have to be in that order, but anybody who would like to go first.
I can go first. We've set our dates. We haven't done much else. The Public Engagement Committee will start meeting every other Wednesday. March 6th will be our first meeting at 2:30 in this space. Yeah, so we've set every other week through like October, but knowing that we may be able to cancel, I just wanted to have them on the books. So it wouldn't
What
have to
time
do.
next week?
2:30.
2:30 next Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay, and the preamble committee met this evening at 5 o'clock, and we will be meeting at 5 o'clock the same day as these meetings. We have meetings set through the end of April at least. Good conversation just around what aspirationally we're hoping to accomplish with the preamble. Some good research and reading was done prior to the meeting, and thanks to the folks at PEL giving us preambles of pretty much all of the other home rule charters that we could find that they could find that had preambles, as well as the preamble for the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution, just to give context of the use and possibility of that part of the document. So have a good plan going forward. This was really more just gathering information, and real work will start at our next meeting.
Thank you.
John, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, Carl and Darlene and I are the Budget and Finance Committee, and we agreed on a meeting schedule every other Monday morning at 9 a.m. Our first meeting is coming up this Monday, and we will have a report at our next commission meeting.
Where will you be meeting?
I think I need Bernie or somebody to help me with that. It's in City Hall somewhere, I believe.
In the room, we're saying it's council chambers.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Ethics Committee.
Yeah, thank you. We were trying to get a date nailed down, and I think we do have that now. Thank you, Bernie, for your help. We will be meeting for the first time next week at 7 p.m. on Thursday in this council chambers. We also scheduled out additional dates to have on the calendar for our use. Those will be on the first Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. in council chambers until the month of June, with the exception of June being at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. because of the date and time of our regular meeting. Whether we use those or not exactly sure. Our first meeting will be for the purpose of having a conversation with the Pittsburgh City Ethics Board, which does exist and has for some time, performs a lot of functions, and just kind of learning about what they do. I shared the Pittsburgh City Ethics Code with the commissioners, so you can get a sense of what Pittsburgh is doing, but I do want to state that I think it'll be useful for us to learn about what the Ethics Code is capable of doing, but the charter itself establishes that. So I think my purpose for having that conversation is to understand what this could potentially be, not necessarily to define what will be in the charter related to it, other than the possibility of an ethics commission with a genesis from the charter. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. Moving on, we've covered all four, so moving on. Next order of business was begin our deliberations. So for this meeting and probably the next one, if not that one after that as well, right, we'll see how far we get, is discussions on form of government, how we would want government set up. So what I would suggest, if there is, without objection, if we just move to a committee of the whole and begin. I have a set of questions that worked up with PEL, sort of the process that I thought we could just sort of start working through, as we had discussed earlier a couple of days ago, if that's okay with.
I think the commission has
You have,
the remember this? We sent it on, y'all have it?
yes.
Yeah, so y'all have this? And this is the guide to the elected officials under Plan A. If y'all recall the discussions of what you learned in the study last meeting, it seemed to be a consensus of the commission that the form of government you have now is a preferable form to multiple other governments that you looked at, so that the inclination is much like using a model of this government that you exist now, adding and subtracting bits from that government, as opposed to starting with a blank sheet of paper and working every little nuance up. So that's the intent here. So starting with the type of government you have, which is a mayor separate from the council. And I think the governing body design reflects that, and that's what you'll discuss tonight.
Okay.
Where those, what form they will take.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm assuming everybody has this or can share it.
If we're going to look at this document, can it be put on the screen so the people who are in the room know what we're looking at?
I think it's on the site in the additional home rule documents, if you're thinking about how to find it.
I could share it with you too.
Yeah.
DJ. Yeah. Okay.
Charter drafting starting point, Lancaster City, GSC. It was sent on 2/19.
Sorry, just trying to trigger that 15. Yeah, I think it's starting point.
Yeah.
Starting point.
I wouldn't expect him to have it though, so.
Yeah.
I think it's on the. Track record's pretty good. Yeah, maybe not. You got it, Tim?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yep. So if you go through a few pages in, there's effectively a list. There we go.
One before that.
One before it.
Oh,
Okay, there you go.
There we go.
okay. So, I guess what the first real question is to discuss the relationship between the mayor and the council. So I'm going to propose the question: should the mayor be a member of the legislative body? Right now, she is not. That just to be clear. So the first question we would have to decide is: should she? Should the mayor be part of council? Yes.
I'll state my opinion, which is that the mayor should remain separate from the council, and a strong mayor role in a full-time position. A city of our size, having the mayor in that role gives us the ability to have a direct interaction with the chief executive of the city and democratic accountability for the person in that role. There's no confusion about who makes decisions around enforcing the ordinances of the city, and I think that's ultimately good for the body politic.
Please jump in. As a committee of the whole, we don't have to stand, we have a little less formality as long as we can maintain decorum. Jump on it.
So, all right, I'm just going to get right into what may be probably is a really radical consideration I'd like y'all to have. So, we've had conversations about, for example, things like set-asides, right? I don't think that the mayor should become a member of council, but something I've thought a lot about is how we have these part-time positions for council, and there's conversation about how, not necessarily in this room, but like what can a part-time person do and how much is to be expected of them. I think it would be very interesting and potentially allow for that sort of political diversity we've conversated about, that the runner-up in a mayoral election should become a full-time council president. Because I don't know how you guys feel about that. I understand it's very radical, but when we started the United States of America, I understand it changed very quickly, and that was politically related. But I think it's an interesting thing to consider that at least the president of council then, because of the way our elections work, you have a difference of party, unless by some weird circumstance two non-affiliated people ended up being the first and second place people running for mayor. But I think that would add a change to our government that would also increase the voice of people who may not be included, but not give away too much power to that individual, but makes their voice important still. I think that's one of my concerns with set-asides, is how you can have somebody in a position, but it doesn't necessarily impact, and you might even make those voices feel even more minimized by doing so, because it's like they're there, but what does that really mean for people? You just have someone who's angry and upset, not really able to be a constructive part of what's going on. So I think a full-time council president is something we should consider, and the way that's selected is through essentially the runner-up in a mayoral contest.
As a full-time president of council, what else would they do? I know what the mayor does, and I know what the current president of council does, who is part-time. So what would a full-time president of council, how would their job responsibilities to warrant a full-time position?
Well, yeah, I'll take this. There's a lot of legislation that comes out of the administration, and I think having a full-time council person and have their job being to review that legislation, to have it in full consideration, to ask the questions also of other administrative directors like Public Works or of neighborhood engagement, having that full-time person to be that counterbalance to the items that come out of the administration, I think would validate the reason for full-time. And also, like I was saying, it increases the strength of that quote-unquote set-aside, if you will, that has been, at least in some minds, whether in this room or outside this room, having that person empowered to be that counterbalance with the ability and time to do that, I think justifies having a full-time position. I'm not necessarily saying what they should be paid or anything. That's a whole other conversation. But I think it's an interesting change we should consider.
What do you mean by set-asides?
So set-asides in the sense that, for example, on the county level, we have the one currently Democratic person that is essentially always guaranteed. So set-asides for other parties to be included in a process. And I think on a county level, we look at that system and we know that there's some level of flaw there. It's important to have that person, but that's part of what the original Home Rule County Charter had proposed, I think was expanding to 5. Set-asides is the term I'm using for when you explicitly say there has to be someone from this party. I'm not trying to set any specific political party or designation. It's whoever just comes in second place.
Yeah, but I guess I would say our country has yet to be more European and have multiple parties at play. So the reality is, we're talking about a duopoly. And so to me, it seems like what that would set up is the constant potential battle between political ideologies.
It could, but I think Lancaster, and I guess I'll say this, I'm probably, as far as even the county goes, the third party guy in the county.
Yeah.
So I also say this hoping that we do see change, but to make it more appealing for other people to break us out of that duopoly. The change from the duopoly has to happen from the bottom up. It really does, in my opinion. We've seen national waves happen that just fall flat on their face over and over again, and I think it's because people don't get engaged on a local level. So I understand a level of concern there and the constant potential battle. But I also don't think, I may be wrong in this, but the president of the council can't necessarily shut things down. I'm just hoping for them to be that counterbalance and have the time and availability to go through legislation.
Mr. Chair, I think the question that we started with, regardless of what you've got here, is do we wish to have, or what role do we wish the mayor to have? That's where we started. Yeah. And I'd like to hear some of the other commissioners' opinions on that matter.
So I guess I'm saying mine varies.
Well, actually, following through, Mr. Feldman, I think your point is well taken. It's interesting, but I think we're ahead of where we want to be.
Sure.
Right now, we're talking, do we have a mayor who is a separate from council? We haven't officially decided that we should even have a city council. So I think we're.
Sure. No, I get what you're saying.
Saying. We're a couple of minutes or a week or two ahead of the game.
A couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes, yeah. But yeah, so actually, let's return to just the idea of the role of the mayor. Should the mayor be just an additional member of council? Should the mayor be separate from council?
I like the idea of keeping the mayor separate. I think that, I think that it works, for me, I think that that is her, keeps her, or she or he accountable. And I like the idea of having them separate. And just to give you my feedback on that, I thought that was an interesting idea to consider. I wouldn't rule it out, but since we're talking about this, I'm going to keep it short and say, I would say, keep it the way it is now.
Any other input on the position of the mayor, not necessarily the role of the mayor? We're not talking about what the mayor does, just whether the mayor is a separate position from what I assume we will have as a city council. So, like I said, these are just deliberations, discussions. Nothing is finalized until the final vote on a charter, which will be months and months from now. So this isn't a question of having motions and voting, but just more of an agreement. Are we in agreement that we would like to keep the mayor as a separate position?
Yes.
Is there anybody who disagrees with that? All right, so there is our first, we have made a decision. We keep the mayor as separate. So that leads us up to the council. I will say, having read a bunch of the other charters, several of the other charters, and actually little bits of all of them and all of a couple of them, I have to bring this up, even though it's really kind of off the topic. The charter actually sets the name of the city. And at the risk of somebody's suggestion that we renamed the city to Bodie McBoatface, I just think, do we have an agreement that we're going to keep the city of Lancaster as the city of Lancaster?
You're here.
Yes.
Okay. So no Bodie McBoatface. I just thought, as we were discussing this, it occurred to me that maybe we should get that out of the way very quickly. All right. So we're in agreement that we will remain the city of Lancaster. Although my wife did say we should name it after the dog.
Yeah.
So somebody's dog should get. Anyways, yes, but we'll keep this. All right. So the next question then is, if you're looking through this list, we have the mayor position. Really, it comes down to the idea of the legislative body, a city council. Do we have a city council? Do we maintain a city council? I'm not sure the leeway. My understanding is we could, I don't know if it's practical, is just do away with a city council. So should we keep the city a legislative body?
Yes.
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 Is there any disagreement with that? I would have been flabbergasted if anybody said, yes, I disagree. But just to make it clear, so yes. So we keep the mayor, we keep the council effectively in the position. Just moving on. So first of all, city council will be called city council.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We'll maintain that. And so the next would be, how many people should be on council? Right now, we have seven.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I guess this ties into the other box too, which is why I'm going to say I think we should have 9, and I have reasoning I can elaborate on when we get to the at-large/district section.
I would agree with that as well.
Mr. Chair.
Keep going. Sure.
I think that 7 is a reasonable number of members of the council. I do not think a larger council would serve the city better than the current council does. And so I guess I would say my starting position is that it should remain the same, if not be smaller.
Oh, I do have an asterisk. I also would like to set some sort of math behind the size of council. So like regardless of what our starting point is from a new charter, let's say the population growth of the city were to double, there should also be an increase in size of council. I think that we should have, like, that's something that, for example, the United States House does, although there's a threshold that I kind of have frustration with. I think that's something we should consider, is having some math behind increasing or decreasing the size of council in the future.
Mr. Chairman, just to
Yes.
inform that point, I suppose you could build into the charter mechanism to expand the council on population basis. But when we're talking the government, the legislature, the executive, size of council terms, all those are defined as the form of government. So when you put those in the charter, the only way they can be changed is by another government study commission. I imagine you could put a mechanism in there to increase or decrease the size of council. I'm not sure what mechanism that would be, because it's you're 50-some thousand people. But be careful. This part of the charter drafting is very important, because this is considered the form of government. And when future populations want to change the government mechanism, some of the things you're going to be deciding on, those will be able to be changed by an ordinance of the municipality sent to the voters. Okay? Certain things cannot be changed that way. It's fixed. And form of government is a fixed form. The only way it can be changed is by another government study commission going through the steps you went through.
So if I can, I just have a quick question, and then we'll go on. Would it be possible to put into a charter to say that if the population increases by a certain amount, it would automatically call for a referendum to form a new home rule commission to reevaluate specifically, although I would assume it could do anything, but for the specific purpose of evaluating the size of council?
You could put in triggers to either require a periodic review by putting the question. Remember, you put the question on the ballot, do you want to have a government study commission? Not, and if the citizens say no, then there is no government study commission. If they say yes, there's a government study commission to look at the entire charter, okay, and then come up with recommendations. That commission could change the entire charter.
So,
Can I?
sorry, yeah.
I think an important point is if we have a new charter, we have citizen referendum and initiatives. So the citizens could say, we want council to be, could the citizens say, we want council to be bigger, and that would be an ordinance, or no?
That would it's still
Okay.
the change in the form.
Got
The
it.
first part of the charter is going to specify how many council, the mayor, terms, those things are defined as form of government.
Got it.
It's hard to change those outside of government study commission.
Got it.
Places have tried and have lost in court.
So what I'm really I mean, and I know the discussion of what these triggers, if we agree on having this sort of thing, that's a whole other conversation in itself. But what I would be hoping for is having like thresholds to say like, hey, the citizens can postpone an automatic increase by referendum, or if the population is within so many degrees, council could put forward a resolution that would put the ballot question up to say, should the council be X or Y? I just think there should be some flexibility and some math behind it so that the size of council doesn't stagnate and require a whole new study commission. But
I think that's the point that he's making, that you can't have a trigger that says, makes that change. It has to be a new study commission, a whole new study commission.
I don't think that was the point.
You
can put triggers in.
You could say that in the event the population increases by 25%, for example, the council will place on the ballot a government study commission question.
Right, but
Okay?
it doesn't automatically trigger an increase.
It doesn't
in the
automatically
council.
trigger, it just
It would have
lets
to
the
be
charter
a new
get
stu-
changed.
another government study commission.
So you're saying it would have to be a question for a new study commission, it couldn't be, it can be X or Y amount?
What he's saying, if I understand this correctly, is that the trigger you could set is that there would be a study commission which would do exactly what we're doing here today.
It would trigger a ballot question to say, should we
Thank you.
form a new
Right.
government
To do
study
what we're doing
question?
here
to-
today.
To do what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
It wouldn't trigger a new addition and expansion of council. It would just trigger the
Right.
possibility of impaneling another government study commission.
Yeah, you can't
To
limit
consider
the
that
activities of government study. You don't know what is, you may go into it with the intention, and say, to consider also the size of the government. But that's no guarantee that's going to come out. The Government Study Commission, I don't think you can put limits by an ordinance on what the Government Study Commission is going to examine.
Something I'd also like to add to this is that, can you form a government study commission outside of a council ordinance in a scenario in which a home rule chartered city has referendum powers? So, for example, we're optional charter plan A. In order to form a study commission, the council had to pass an ordinance to call for the referendum and then impanel this body.
That's one way. Under the home rule and option, you're under the home rule and optional plans law when you go into a home rule charter or an
I guess
optional
my
plan.
point is, can the
There's a-
citizens
there
use
is-
their referendum
Yes,
power?
there is
Okay.
there is a provision in the law for either a government study commission question to be triggered by ordinance of the governing body
Mhm.
or initiative of the electors. And there's,
Yeah.
I forget how much, it's 200 names or something, or 5% of the governors. I forget the.
Yeah, it's
in the-
based
in the-
on the voters and the
I think
It's
my-
in-
Isn't that what the
prior
county did?
election.
Isn't that what the county did 15 years ago?
I
It
think
wasn't
so.
a county initiative, it was
I think so.
a citizen initiative.
I
Okay,
I
so
think my point in saying this is that if your concern is
I don't remember.
a scenario in which there will not be a mechanism in the future to impanel a study commission, which is the best you're going to get, then we can say definitively that's not correct, because the study commission can also come about through the mechanism of referendum. For that reason, I do not think that we should put any kind of triggering of a new study commission after so long or for whatever reasons. Let's let the people who live in this town in the future decide what they think is best for them at that time.
Hey, can I jump in with, a comment and a question related to the topic of the size of council?
please.
So I had the opportunity to serve on, like boards of some community organizations, and my experience is that bigger isn't necessarily better. That, what you really want most of all is a group that can, where you can count on, people attending, where they can function and they can make decisions, and where you're attracting, the best people to serve in that organization. So I guess, I guess my question would be, for those who are recommending a larger council, what do you believe is the benefit of a larger council?
Oh, I'll jump in right with that one. I think the benefit of having more council members is that you have fewer people per representative. Like, that's why, for example, the Constitution of the United States had originally set up mathematical mechanisms for increase until it capped out. And I think that's part of the issue with our federal government today, is that there's so few representatives for so many people. So I'm actually less concerned. Like, I do hear you about the trigger for a home rule vote, essentially, but I'm more concerned about just making sure that the amount of people represented by a single person always lines up in some way.
They line up now.
Sure, they line up now, but if the population of the city were to increase, like, where does it go from there? That's more where my head is at.
I'll just say that in terms of the size, I think 7 and our current is satisfactory. I'm not sure or convinced that we need to have more.
Did, I will say, just the interest in does Mr. Reddick have something that he wanted to add, or?
I don't know, Fred, did you try to say something?
I just wanted to clarify, it is 5% of the electorate in the last gubernatorial election.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Let me clarify something. When I was doing the research on this, I was struck by how, we talked about it at one of the beginning meetings, how stable Lancaster's population is. I don't know that you've changed in the 50 years. It's been right around 50,000 people, and as I drive through the city, you grew through annexation. If you all remember, Park City Mall was in the township, and when I did assessments for our organization, Lancaster has like 5 partitions that you always have to add in because they went and grabbed land. The way the city grew was by reaching out and grabbing land of the neighboring townships, or the citizens had developed a part of the township and they wanted better services, they came to the city. You can't do that anymore. That was outlawed by the boundary change law of the state legislature. You now have to have a vote by both municipalities to merge, consolidate. You just can't reach out and grab. That's how the city grew. Your population has been very stable since the 70s and the 60s. You're sort of arguing a hypothetical because unless you have a lot of developable land or a lot of fecund people, your population isn't going to grow proportionally larger. So,
Like Manheim Township.
like Manheim Township or the surrounding townships, because they grow through developable land, subdividable land. Given the relatively stable population, the citizens' initiative built into the home rule law and the ability to ask for a referendum, if it's inadequate representation in the future, the citizens could have a campaign and they could say, we want the Government Study Commission and we want it to focus on the size of council, but they can't limit that. You follow me? So don't misunderstand. The goal tonight is to come up with a recipe for ice cream, not to debate flavors, varieties, okay, permutations. Let's figure out what the ice cream is made out of, then we'll decide Neapolitan, chocolate, vanilla. That all comes later, okay? Because right now we're getting wrapped down in the kind of like, it'd be nice to have this kind of ice cream, but we haven't figured out what ice cream we're going to even start making yet. You know, the basic ingredients. So we need to focus on that.
To explain my logic.
Yeah, you bring up anything you want.
So just so everybody knows, because I'm happy to let go of that whole mathematical thing for now. The reason why I was saying 9 council members, though, is because what I would be interested in seeing, because I understand we can't do a strict ward division, or a quadrant division, but to try and keep in line with the way we've described the city in quadrants, I'd like to see a split council of 4 at-large and 4 districts, using the city center lines as the guiding lines for that, to try and stay within those bounds as much as possible. So that's why I was saying 9, but then going back to the whole president of council idea, 4 at-large, 4 districts, and then this president of council going through a mayoral second place election mechanism.
This actually is a little bit farther down the list, is when we start discussing whether city council or elected at large by districts. And I think what you're saying is a good one to bring up when we get there. So the issue comes up is 7, 9. Nobody has suggested 5.
Well, I said last week be fine.
Or 7 or less.
But we're not making a decision today. We're not voting on that. We're just discussions, what we think, 5, 7, or 9.
We're effectively roughing out a general idea. The only vote that counts is the very final one, and my understanding is until they vote, everything can be changed. Yes, Councilor.
I'll just say yes. What you're doing for all of these meetings is trying to reach consensus to keep the project moving towards the drafting of a document. The final version of that would be what you're voting. So it's not we have a 5-4 vote, we're going to have a strong mayor, 7-member council. But in order to be able to move from step to step, to have language to at least begin reviewing, the purpose of these discussions is to get a general consensus for PEL, with me assisting in drafting you sample language continue to consider, right? So at the end of this, we'll be making a vote on the document comes out, and there can be motions to amend that document, so there can be changes based on, so for example, right now you're starting with what's the number? Okay, as we get to the next set of questions, maybe that's district voting, maybe then we're going back and saying, well, wait a minute, now if we're gonna do this district voting, maybe we should look at, changing the number.
Right.
So, I think one of the issues is gonna be to let PEL keep you focused on the specific question so that you can keep the cart from being before the horse, right? And that those will all come. And that's just a suggestion for how to proceed so that you don't get tied up as if, hey, what I think right now is completely off the table. No, we need to walk through the process. And that's just a suggestion.
Okay, and I guess that's where I was debating about whether I thought 7 or 9 would be good, would be depending upon if we're doing districting. And so that number, I could say yes now, and when we get to districting and it's not like playing out the way I think, then I may say no. That's why I'm kind of like not saying nothing until we get to the points that would help generate that, because to me, we're backtracking. If we say 7 and we get a consensus, and then we go into districting, and then we got to backtrack to the 7 or 9 again, it would be good if we discuss those things now, so then we're in a consensus saying, yes, with districting, we only want 7, or we want 9. But I think trying to say, yes, I give my consensus for a 7 council member, then the next item is, are we going to do districting?
Right,
I think,
At which
and
point
that's
you can
gonna go
immediately
back.
say, now, I want to go back and say 9 then.
well,
Okay.
Commissioner,
That was my thought. That's why I chose a bigger number, was because I was thinking that is exactly why I said a bigger number, not knowing for sure if that is what we would definitely need, but that's where I was going with that.
the other way I kind of see this is, I think there are areas where we probably have some consensus, as we did at the start, and I think that gives PEL useful information to start working on what we would need for those components, and then we are also identifying the areas where we do not have consensus, where we can spend more time trying to work it out. So,
I would say at this point, we're the general consensus is we want either 7 or 9. We don't want 5, we don't want 11 or 13 or 27. So I think we
I
can
would
have
agree
a
with
general idea
fine with that.
that council will probably be 7 members or 9 members. We'll formalize it or finalize it as we move forward.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement on that?
Yep.
I agree with that.
Is that a workable starting point?
Yes.
It's a number.
It's a number. It's 2 numbers, actually, but,
Right.
so, all right. So just keeping this, we have talking about keeping council, keeping the size of the council. This is actually where actually, the next one I have is terms. Currently, city council term is 4 years. Should the city, this is where we can start discussing, should we retain a 4-year term for council? Should council be 2 years? I think the current law requires council, mayor and council to be elected in municipal elections, which are the odd year elections. I'm not sure the exact definitions, but
Yes.
2025, 27, 29, as compared to the even years, which are the general elections.
4 years is
I don't
fine.
see a reason to change that.
Yeah.
I think 2 years is too short. Just by the time for council, by the time you start to learn everything, you're going on, so.
Your perpetual
And you're-
reelection
yeah,
campaign.
I was going to say, you're campaigning all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not effective. You're not effectively governing.
John, did you have something to say?
Exactly what Pete said.
Thanks.
Now, the United States Senate has
our
6-year terms.
Yeah.
That
The
is
House of
also,
Representatives too.
House is 2.
It's 2, and that's
President's
at
4,
the state and
And
you know,
they're-
You see
to
how
learn, and they have to run it, and they have
and
to
they're
run again,
campaigning
so.
all the time.
Well,
They're all
I mean,
campaigning all the time, but
Yeah,
that's also the nature of the beast.
I would-
Township commissioners are supervisors. Township supervisors are 6, township commissioners are 4.
Something
Yeah.
that I heard at one of our events that I've been thinking about is somebody said, like, hey, I would like a stronger council. You're not going to get a stronger council with a shorter term, I'll tell you that. So I'm not, I don't know about all of that, but I just, like, that was one piece of data that I got, and for me, I already thought it should be 4 terms, and that kind of, or 4 years, and that kind of confirms it.
I think I said we should have a stronger council, but I also know that the one thing that I keep hearing, our consultant tells us, if you don't like them, vote them out. So if we don't like what happens, our out was to vote them out. And you said that to us over and over again about what we come up with. Our out was, then we have to change our council members. So that's what made me think about too. I'm not saying that's what I want, but that's what's making me think about too, because everything that you said to us, that was our bottom line. If you don't like it, then you got to vote them out. So that makes me think, well, maybe then it should be 2 years. If that's our out of when we get into something, change it. Our bottom line is we have to vote them out. So that makes me think about too. I'm not set on it, but that's what made me think about too.
Yeah, I'm not set on terms either, because some of it will vary on the conditions of the entire council setup for me.
My understanding of American history, and I've lived a little bit more of it than Mr. Dastra, and when the next Home Rule Commission, I will agree for you to be the chair at 62 years old. When the next time this goes around, the length of the terms in the federal government were set for very specific reasons. In the House of Representatives, the 2 years was because it was the person was supposed to be a citizen legislator, that they're supposed to come in for 2, 4, 6 years and then want to go home. And so that was enough time to get their point in and go back and get back on the farm. Whereas the Senate was modeled after the House of Lords, which was supposed to be, as it was often described as, the saucer where you let the tea cool. And the reason for 6 years, and they also, if you remember, but it's the way it is, they staggered them so there's a Senate election every 2 years. So you do have a possibility of turning over a third of the Senate every 2 years, but the term is 6 years. Just pointing out the reason for why we're comparing things to federal government, and which also is effectively our state government very closely.
I want to add on your point. And senators used to be selected by state legislatures.
Yes.
They were not always directly elected. So just adding that as a factoid. I wasn't there then.
That was part of the House of Lords part, but
Yeah.
yes, that the state picked their senators, and that actually was turned over, I don't know when.
1800s.
No,
Early, that wasn't.
Direct election?
I think it was
1920s? No.
around that time
Yeah.
period.
Oh, was that late?
That was the
That
progressive.
recently?
I believe it was, yeah. That was one of the progressives platforms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with 4 years. I think for a size of council, I would make the argument if the council were significantly larger, then the idea of saying that, maybe a 6-year term like township supervisors have would be effective. But for a smaller council, I think the 4 years makes sense for me.
I think it makes sense for me as well. I like the idea of 4 years because, kind of like what you guys were saying, 2 years is just not enough time you start to get familiarized with the system and then you're done. So I would be in favor of 4 years, but I would, maybe if something changes along the line as we start to discuss things, I might consider the 2-year term, but for now, I think the 4-year makes more sense for me.
And I do think if it is 2 years, and I'm not saying I'm for 2 years right now, but like I'm like more with Elizabeth. I got to see some more of what we're deciding down the road. But it wouldn't stop someone that learned something in 2 years from running again. And because they done learned something, now they've been on there 2 years. So it wouldn't stop them from running again and serving more time.
I'll play devil's advocate on this one. A two-year term tends to increase the number of people who want to run. There's a human nature aspect that says, well, I'm willing to do this for 2 years, but 4 years, that seems like a long time. That's scary. 2 years isn't as scary as 4 years. So the idea of getting people to run maybe more often at 2 years. Personally, I think 4 years is just fine,
Right.
but just wanted to throw that out there.
And I just think about, just looking recently with our government, we have a lot of council members that only serve 2 years and they move on. I think it's good when you have council that are here and they're in the city and they're set to stay. But right now, whether we want to admit it, the political climate is our council members look to proceed and go further in government. So the commitment is not at the council level. So I think by not holding them to that, let them do their 2 years. And if they want to go to the state or go up higher, they can. So, and I'm just looking recently with our council, how many seats have we left that where people only serve 2 years? So, and like I said, I'm still not weighed, but I'm putting all this into my mind as I'm deciding.
In the current council, I think the longest serving council member is only in about their 6th year. I just looked at this just the other day, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think the longest serving was elected in 2018. So the current system does seem to provide for a fairly quick turnover, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, and we can circle back to get to it, but I think to expand on Darlene's point about the length of people who have represented, I think vacancies and how to fill them is a big conversation to have. But I won't dive into that too much right now. I think how we fill vacancies is an important conversation to have.
Yeah. That might be, that could be handled.
So I'm hearing a consensus of 4 years as a point to work with now. All right. What about staggering terms? Do we elect the entire council every 4 years? Do we elect half every 2 years?
How do we do it now?
We stagger
Stagger.
them 4 and
Stagger.
3.
That makes
So
sense.
4 with the mayor,
Yep, makes sense.
3 in the other off-year election. I actually think, though, if we're going to go at large, we should do all of them at once. I think that provides more opportunity for people to break into a system because it can be hard to, I am speaking as someone who's run myself or other people. It can be a challenge, and sometimes with a small set of people you have to pick from, you got people like, I want these people. I wish I could go with that other person, but meh. However, if we were to go to an at-large district system, part of why I was suggesting an even split is to do all of the at-large representatives all at once, and then in the off years, focusing on the district reps and them having the ability for them to navigate their local areas.
So it'd still be staggered.
So still be staggered, yeah, but the staggering is something I'm only comfortable with if there's a districting element to what we're doing.
So if there was not, if all 7 were voted in at large, would you be suggesting that there is every 4 years, the entire council is up for election? And would you then put the mayor in the 2 year in between? Is that how?
I wasn't actually thinking of the mayor in that sense, but that might not be a bad check and balance to have there, because then if the public were to disagree with the movement of council, they could, in theory, elect a mayor that pushes back against them. That's actually a good idea.
Jerry, of the sample charters you gave us, those municipalities, how does anyone elect their council at all at one time?
Top of my head, I think they're all staggered.
Staggered.
I think they're all staggered, top of my head, because it's the opportunity to change the majority of the board. But it varies, you know. County commissioners are one of the few governing bodies where you change all at once, which is the purpose behind you vote 3 people run, you over 2 in the county commissioners, and the third runner-up is the other commissioner. Because you're changing the number every 4 years. They're running together. Otherwise, it's, I think, as normal as staggered, because it gives you the opportunity to.
I would just question, one of the things I think you need to ask yourself, if you're going to do them all at once, is institutional knowledge. And particularly if you want to do 2-year terms, if you're going to wipe out the whole council at once and have a whole new council come in, do you have any concerns about them all coming up to speed and at the same time, as opposed to
No, it's all.
having half that sort of know what's going on?
This is all.
I think I see your point with that. But to actually bring up the county system again, maybe it wouldn't be bad to do them all at once, but you can only vote for like 5 of 7 or 7 of 9.
I would go with staggered.
I would support a staggered arrangement as well, and a less confusing voting structure for the voters, I think, is important. The other thing I was thinking about is that if you do them all at once, you're kind of putting the council in a situation that the county finds itself in. I think a lot of people don't talk about, but always bothered me, where the council is going to be incentivized, if they're all up for election at the same time, to basically all present together. And if you want there to be any distinction of preference on the council, you're going to need to give them opportunities to act independently and separately. So if you do it all together, I think you might lose a opportunity.
I would say I'm, that's not me.
No. I wonder if it's the mic at the rostrum.
Oh, maybe that's the one.
That's good, right?
It was on.
Oh, well, I don't know. That's it.
Doesn't mean we fixed the problem.
Maybe.
We'll find out soon.
Okay, so I like the idea of staggering. I don't like the idea of wiping out everybody at the same time, because I think you need to have some people that have that knowledge and experience of being in the council. So I think for that reason, I would just say I'm for the staggering.
Any more? Is there any, I'm hearing a general consensus maintaining a staggered term.
That wasn't it?
I think it's the mic on the laptop.
This mic is off.
Oh,
It's been off the whole time. I'll move it, but
well then maybe there's a short in the mic.
In general, just try not to touch the mics, just talk.
Maybe it's us,
Mad.
Tony and me.
The ghost of
Grab
city.
you.
Okay, so I'm hearing a consensus, I don't know if it's unanimity, but that we should probably retain the staggered terms.
Okay.
Anybody else, please?
In a hypothetical system where we stick with very similar prospects, what about switching the mayor to the term with fewer councilors being elected? Because right now it's the 4 councilors and the mayor, and then in the off years it's the 3 councilors, and just that's what it is.
I think that I don't have a strong feeling about this. I would want to know how other municipalities do it. I think there's some wisdom to the state election cycle. Like, I think all of the third-class city mayors might be on a... No, I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling about it.
I think they're required to do, I think they are required to do it that way, unless, I don't know of any home rule systems that have done it differently, but I think it's a requirement that the mayor is elected in that way currently.
Trying to think about what else is on the ballot in the year that the mayor is on the ballot. I guess all the same things in every odd-numbered election year. Certain county row office. Actually, the county commissioners and I think the mayor are never on the ballot together.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. They're separate. 'Cause we just
Which is
had
actually kind of funny because
county commissioner, yeah. I think they-
Well, I mean, because they're both serving 4-year terms, that may just be a coincidence from the initial start, that when I don't know if that was intentional or if it just worked out that way. That the mayor and the county commissioners are never in the same year.
Might be good to have them in the same year.
I think it would be too.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Well, and
I like that.
I may think we're getting a little bit ahead on electing the mayor. We're still talking about council, but I will throw this out. And this sort of leads in with Mr. Dastra's idea, or similar to the idea. We could theoretically, practically set it up where out of the 7 councils, you have 3 elected the first year, 3 in the next 2 years later, and the year that is not the mayor, there's also another position for president of council. It's a separate job. You were talking about a full-time job, even if it's a part-time job. You could have the people vote for the president of council. Right now, council votes for president of council. Just a thought that I had that similar to what you were saying.
I like that idea, but I really feel that we need to consider mechanisms for the inclusion of other voices. Like, I don't know specifically what that is, whether it's saying you can only vote for 2 or 3, or like I was saying earlier, the mayor, the second runner-up becomes president of council, because that just carries a little bit more weight. And the person who runs for mayor as well is expecting, they have to expect to be in a potentially full-time position.
Yeah.
So I think it just gives that level of, you know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I understand it. I worry a little bit that you have a excellent top of the line candidate and a really, really bad one.
Right.
And so the voters all know perfectly well that whether they like or dislike this person, they really do not want this other person anywhere near City Hall. So they vote for that person, and the runner-up then becomes effectively the second in command, and that's what, or I think, and I will also argue against myself that we're getting a little bit ahead, but just because I'm thinking about it right now, the idea would be if you did this 3-3 and then the mayor one time and president of council the other, that's the chance for the voters to say, well, we really don't like the fact that right now we have a mayor who's a Democrat, we have 5 Democrats on council, and suddenly we have 2 years later, we said, well, we're going to throw a little monkey wrench into it and put a Republican in charge of council, even though the other 6 members are all Democrats. It's just something, again, no final decisions, but we're really talking about, are we staggering terms, which I think the consensus is yes. But it's something that we can continue with.
Mr. Chairman, one thing on, when you're talking about the variations in elections and all those permutations, the election code in Pennsylvania is a uniform act. So I'm no expert on it at all. I don't know the constraints on a government, a home rule government imposed by the election code. I don't know that some of these different variations of voting are possible. I don't know that. That's something you have to have an attorney look into. Or even if it's, because uniform acts, you can't change. So
why don't we just ask?
Well, that was going to be my next comment.
To look into it and.
We don't know. We know somebody who, if they don't know, they know somebody who does. It's something that we could ask that between PEL and the solicitor, that maybe you could find out if those things are even possible as we move forward.
What I would ask, because we're going to be doing this now for 6 months. So what I don't want to be doing is researching questions that aren't questions. I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to say, like, this is a allocation of resource and effort. Right? I think if we get to a position where it's something the consensus is that we want to do, then we put the resources to researching whether there's any obstacles to it. When I know for sure, I'm going to tell you, on something that is a little bit unique, we may have to look at it, get through some of the questions, and then, we can certainly get to, this is something we absolutely want to have, if possible. This is very much a challenge. I don't know what to do here.
I get it.
I'm happy to research, but I just want to make sure that what we're not doing in every meeting, researching lots of questions that aren't really at the forefront.
Right.
Well,
So that the next meeting, we can say, oh, we changed our mind.
Exactly.
We don't need it now.
I do want to be bold enough to say, I think in some level, there are going to be questions we have that we don't necessarily have an answer to, and it may require a legal decision. Like, that is something that sometimes occurs.
Or we can go. I don't have the clock behind me, so I can watch the time. We have lots of questions, and we can break, I don't know how far, we should get, why don't we just do it? How about you, sir?
Mechanism.
Sounds good to me.
John, did you have something to say?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.